Yeah, no, it's a great time, man. I want to touch on culture
Yeah.
because, like I said, I think one of the things in my time at Northumbria that I picked on, and it's actually, obviously, Teo, me and Teo are like best friends. We've started this basketball journey together at Barnet. Troy is another one of my friends that's played for you, and like we have conversations, about our time at Northumbria and whatnot. And one thing we all agreed on is Northumbria was like the best in terms of practice, been the best practice environment I've ever been involved in. And they just said the same thing. And one thing I think we all agreed on is like what made Northumbria's practices so good is that, it was competitive. There was that competitive environment. So yeah, I wanna talk on culture. What is a Marc Steutel culture, and like what's your identity in that respect?
Yeah. That's the key word, isn't it, mate? At the minute, and Chuck, I know that you're a junkie. You probably listen to Bill Simmons' Book of Basketball podcasts and like the one with Steve Kerr, and they're talking about the secret. And they're talking about different groups. Steve Kerr, when he's been on, the secret recipe, the secret formula of what bringing groups together, and this culture word, mate. It's in business organisations, it's
Mm-hmm.
in any profession. You define it by what you do, like, and I always think about trying to get these things down onto paper, and the process of a basketball season is a long thing, and sometimes you can preempt stuff, and sometimes you have to be reactive. There's a kind of a balance with it. I think one thing that I always tried to do was put a framework out of these are the things that I, as the coach, believe are important. I want you to be who you are, but I want you to understand that we're all committing to the greater good. And if there's times when, I'll talk you through it. If I think that, you've done something that you might not be aware of that isn't what we're trying to do, I'll talk you through it. Now, if you consciously continue to do that and it's not what we're doing, that's when we're going to, not see eye to eye. And,
Mm.
it got to the point at Northumbria where, I felt that like I was able to drive that. I talk about Tommy a little bit. Tommy and I relationship.
Yeah,
We.
that was frustrating.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
wasn't always great, and
yeah.
Tommy would disagree with things that I would say. But it got to the point where Tommy would say something that that I didn't have to say, and it became really players holding guys accountable. And like you said, I mean, I know different, but the way that you practice, but at that level when we were able to get guys together, I wanted guys to walk out of there like, we've just killed each other,
Mm.
and we did, and that was that was special, mate. And I just think that we had some structure with how the week would look. This is what we're reviewing here. We're doing this. So the guys kind of become a bit habitual. I didn't want it to become monotonous where we're doing the same stuff, but like the theme of the practices were the same. Thursday we're going to be doing our defense, and I felt like we drilled that consistently every 45, 50 minutes, and then we'd tweak it based on the scout and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can give you a term to define culture, and hopefully when I'm a lot older, and hopefully I've still been coaching, I can. But I just think committing to the program and what you're all trying to achieve, and staying true to it, and holding guys accountable. And I think every coach in the world will say I hold guys accountable, and how different people do that is probably the art of what I think coaching is.
Yep, I agree.
And I think that's probably where different emotional intelligence, analyze and observe all these different things, mate. It comes down to it. There's so many different factors. I was fortunate to have a group of people for a good few years there that allowed themselves to be coached, continued to commit, to buy in, trusted each other. And it got to the point where it became special, like honestly, mate, it became really special. And sometimes that comes through with a bit of adversity, and I've had different examples of it, and sometimes it just comes through with trust, trust and
Yep.
consistency.
Mm.
And there's like I gave an example there of one time we were playing, and I went through the scout, and I think it was Simon's matchup, and I wanted Simon to chase the guy off the line, and Syed kind of in front of the team, like agreed to it, and then just pulled me to the side and was like, listen, I just want to keep it straightforward for everybody, but I'm going to give him one or two where I'm going to challenge him because I think I'm in his head. If he hits one, I'll change it, but don't chew me out for hitting one. And I'm like, okay, like that's, I saw it one way, he saw it another way, he's on the floor. I think he without us having a conversation, he knew the time to address that was away from the time that he did, and that's when it became like effective. So I think I learned as much as probably I led as such, but yeah, it was good, mate. So I would say, like, the art of maybe holding guys accountable, trusting each other, and being consistent with what you're saying you're going to do. Say what you're going to do and stay consistent with it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, man. And I think obviously having come off a weird season this year with Essex, I think that was one of the things we struggled with this year. Everyone's probably seen, how the league ended. But, we had a run of games. Well, firstly, we had a brand new team this year. I was the only one who came back. And I personally, looking back, think we struggled we said the right things. We had credit to like Coach Baker and stuff. Like, he had us, saying the right things. We were saying the right things. But I didn't feel like we bought into, that culture of, the things you said. And I think ultimately it played a part in a lot of our games, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, I mean, culture, was massive at Northumbria, and it was something, we speak about Tommy D a lot, but he was essentially, I think he embedded the Northumbria culture, you know what I mean? So when I was preparing this podcast, no one knows this, but me and Teo did a pilot episode, where I sort of interviewed him like this, and we brought up something which I wanted to ask you. So we were saying like how, the general consensus when Northumbria were in D1 is like everybody hated Northumbria, and he asked me why I thought people hated Northumbria, but I wanted to ask you if you felt like there was that sort of, not negative energy, but that sort of energy towards, when people played Northumbria when you were coaching. And why do you think it was, if you agree with that?
Yes, yeah, probably do. Probably different levels to that, different people and stuff. It's, I guess personal relationships, etc. But I would say, there was probably different elements. We were, I would say we were very aggressive, as a team, and, people felt that we were physical. I felt like, I can get caught up in the heat of competition at times, me personally, and I get I get demonstrative a little bit, and I know at times, people would say that, one of the things I did always try and do, and I got better. I have got better. I'm still not where I want to be. Was obviously the dialogue with officials. I think that's that. Do you know who was key for that? Honestly, was I know we said his name a little bit, and this is where coaches can learn off players, etc. as well. But was Tommy, because I think there was a time when we were struggling and I was riding the refs, and he just pulled me and is like, "Will you shut the fuck up? We need you to coach." He's like, and that's that kind of stuck with me a little bit where. Yeah. I kind of sat down and like checked myself for a second, and I think that might have been the tough year that we had, which could have been Tommy's first year, So and that just a lot of credit with him, and he was right, because when I was doing that, I was losing focus on what did we need, what was offense, defense, all that type of stuff, So so I don't think I personally helped. There's probably a little bit of it where I didn't care, to be honest, mate, because the only thing that I did care about was, us and making sure that we were prepared and that our mindset was right. And I think that we had that kind of grittiness where, if people didn't like us, so what? And we were going to go on and play the way we wanted to play and, be there for each other. And I know different, but Blaine obviously talks a little bit of smack and gets after it a little bit as well.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. And, I kind of that. It's that thing of like, he is who he is, and I want him to be who he is, and I wanted us to, if it, a little bit, bite here and there, that's fine, So, yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to hear what you and Teo thought, but probably a mixture of all those things,
Yeah, kind of. I'd say on the same lines. I said, I think the main thing with Northumbria teams, you know, and I think again I'll go back to this conversation we had about culture, is the culture inside. I think I learnt this when I played there. Is like the culture inside is very much, you know, it's the tough survive. You know what I mean? It's very, you have to have an element of mental strength, you know, to be successful. I think playing in that kind of environment, and I think the people who do, you know, survive and who are able to play in that kind of environment, those are the people who, you know, are going to be your, you know, your warriors when you go out to war. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I felt like that sort of environment created, you know, the identity of Northumbria when we faced other teams. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of teams also, you know, when you play against a team like that, that's like you said, is aggressive, ferocious. You know, you've got guys on your team like a Blaine, like Tommy, like you know, like Teo, you know, who'll throw a Jackie Wilson, who will, you know, throw the odd elbow, you know, make you work for your buckets, you know what I mean, and also the long last drive up to Northumbria, you know what I mean. I think the whole combination, and obviously you being the outspoken coach, that's, you know what I mean, that's on the sidelines. I think the whole combination of that, it created an environment for teams when they were playing Northumbria where it's like, we got to be on our A game, man. We fuck these guys, in a sense. You know what I mean? I think looking back, you know, it said a lot about, you know, the program and stuff. Because there's one thing I learned from. It's gonna sound crazy, and this is a crazy example, but LeVar Ball, you know, about what he said about when he was riling up all the other players when Lonzo was to get into the league, and he was basically saying that he wants them to be at their best when they play Lonzo, because if Lonzo can handle their best, then they've got nothing else to show. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's kind of like that with you know, with Northumbria. You know, if teams come up there and they play their best, and you guys still win, you know, and then it's like, well, shit, you know. Yeah, that's half the battle done. You know what I mean?
I agree. Sorry, I agree. Yeah, I agree, Chuck. I agree. Yeah, good. But you know, like, I agree, mate. It was just, and when the focus is internal and you don't, you know, like, other people have different perceptions then. And there was times that, you know, we would go on these runs and you could just sense that togetherness, and other teams would capitulate, you know, and that's where, you know, we would. You know, we would just, like, you know, time out, and Tommy's, you know, shouting, you know, let's stomp our foot on their neck. You know, other people usually say, but like, let's just, you know, let's get after it now. Let's get after it, you know. And it was fun, mate. Honestly, it was fun. You know what I mean? And like, I remember in particular with that group, you know, I would speak to, you know, I have really close coaching friends in the league, and I'd speak to them, and I'd be like, you know, listen, I've let this slide, you know, where maybe I would address it, but we're rolling, we're winning, you know, little, and maybe that art of, like, you know, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but, you know, that moment in time we were trying to win and we were on a roll, and, you know, it's just, it is interesting, mate, you know, but everything you've said, I absolutely agree with. Yeah, I do absolutely agree with.